Welcome back to 7997 with your hosts Chris and Jackie, two empty nesters reclaiming our time.
Hey, I like that intro.
I just made it up on the spot.
Totally wung it. Yes.
First of all, the past tense of wing is not one.
Well, you can't say winged it. Like, that doesn't make sense.
I don't think there is a past tense of wing.
Okay, how about this? You did that. Sure. You're welcome. Good job. Okay, come on.
Okay.
Hey, do you remember? Do it again.
Two empty nesters reclaiming our time.
Come on, reclaim.
So this week we're going to talk about, I don't even want to say week, because maybe we'll do this more than once a week. Mm-hmm. Today, we're talking about sort of our transplant from living in Mexico to living in Dayton, Ohio now. Mm-hmm. And like, what really did we get out of that time away and that time in a new place? Like, what is unlocked? What can we rediscover? What can we now tap into because we are in this new place and because we were in the old place? Mm-hmm. So I would ask you, as you come back to the U.S., you've had some time here, and there's definitely things that you feel like you're missing from what you had in Mexico.
Sure.
What has Mexico changed about the way you live, the way you move, your perspectives that you can kind of take with you here to kind of change maybe the way you would behave in America now that you have this newfound knowledge of life in Mexico?
Right. Some things are practical, and then some things I think are things that pass down, right, to even the next generation. So practical, for the record, guys, we don't have to put toilet paper down the toilet. You didn't know I was going to go there.
I had a feeling you might go there, but I didn't know you would start there.
Listen,
the biggest thing? Toilet paper.
Toilet paper. For the record, guys and gals, if you just want to save a couple of dollars on, in your budget, get a little bidet, and just some dry-off towels, and kick the toilet paper habit. Just kick it. It'll save your plumbing. It'll save all the things.
Because living in Mexico,
yes,
it's a surprise to many people that, okay, you shouldn't be flushing toilet paper. The plumbing can't handle it.
Yeah.
But actually, if you happen to live in a city like Dayton that has 100-year-old homes, your plumbing a lot of times can't handle it either.
Right.
So,
and these new flushable wipes.
Yeah, none of those wipes are flushable.
They're not.
I don't know if y'all have seen it, but it's a video that was floating around for years of like this pile of flushable wipes in the sewers of Paris.
Oh, wow.
Like a flushable wipes about a monster in the sewers. Yeah, so those flushable wipes are not flushable, and you should not be flushing.
You shouldn't be using it.
Sorry.
That's
all
right.
Toilet paper, number one.
So toilet paper.
Top of the list.
Yeah. The practicality of it all. Let me see. Appreciating people and their culture and customs. On a previous episode, many of them actually, we talked about being in Mexico and the people and just coming from an Americanized worldview. Anybody who is not of a certain race, a certain ethnicity or a certain color of skin, they're the others. And we are here to say without a shadow of a doubt, Mexicans are not the others. They are people who originated here and they belong here. And if you go back, you will understand that their land was taken from them. It's no different than what happened to the Cherokee, Blackfoot, Sioux, all the indigenous tribes here on this land belong here. And it was stolen from them. And not only was it stolen from them, but the American government sent money to European countries to pay for it, i.e., Florida was once Spain.
Louisiana Purchase and stuff like that.
Louisiana Purchase, when you're talking about going from Mississippi westward. And so it's like they belong here. And so just being able to take that in even more, that I can now just get rid of those negative, wrong thoughts and ideologies. They don't belong. They're not even factual, let alone truthful. They belong here.
And I even take it to an updated sense of like, I don't think I ever looked at immigrants in the same way of like, I didn't really understand what it took to be in someone else's country.
Oh, that, yeah, come on now, bring it.
Language and
bring
culture.
it, yeah.
So like, I wasn't necessarily, negative against immigrants in any way. But I wasn't fully empathetic of like what it takes to be able to maneuver in a place that you did not grow up in, and a language that you did not speak, did not grow up speaking, and be able to thrive and move forward and do just day-to-day things in the country. Like even being in Mexico, just understanding like, hey, I want to go down to the corner store. I have to rehearse conversations in my head in order to make sure I have the translation right.
Yeah.
And if that conversation goes off the rails, they say something I don't understand, I'm stuck.
Right.
Because
stuck
my
like
language skills are terrible.
Yeah.
So like when I'm in interactions with people from another country or speak a different language and English isn't their first language, I have more empathy now of like where you are in the conversation, what it takes for you to move forward and understand what someone is saying to you just at a basic level just becomes so difficult. And like, I now understand like, okay, I should be slowing down when I'm talking to you. I should be using simpler language when I'm talking to you. I can say it a different way if you need me to, because there's 5 different ways to say something.
Yeah.
Whereas you're saying something that is a slang that everybody knows because we all grown up with that slang, and I don't know the slang, and you're saying it, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
So like trying to get past that hurdle of like being the outsider, I think, and understanding that, you can be successful in that environment, but it takes a whole lot of effort.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mental stress that you're going through just on a day-to-day basis just to go get a candy bar at the corner store.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be the most complicated interaction for it to be a mental stress on you every day.
Yeah.
So that definitely is something I think I brought it with me, and like I now understand a lot better and hopefully have more empathy for people in that situation.
And that's even without knowing their story.
Yeah.
Because there are too many people that don't have the luxury of being able to plot, plan, pack, sell, buy tickets, right? And go through a whole process. Some people literally leave with the clothes on their backs out of fear and, hurt and harm and things like that. So that's without even knowing the story, right? To slow down and be empathetic to someone, just to have a simple conversation, and then to piggyback off of that piece of it, which I love that you mentioned that, is now it makes me more curious. So I noticed that like when every time I would come back to visit, when we still lived in Mexico, jump into the Uber, I hear accent. Where are you from? Where are you? What brought you to the States? And things like that. And then, they noticed that I was genuinely curious and having a conversation with them. And then they want to know, well, where do you live? I'm like, well, actually, I'm a black lady living in Mexico. They're like, in Mexico? Everyone always would say, New Mexico? No. The old Mexico. No, the real country. Like my passport just got stamped. And then that opens up the dialogue too, and so it is definitely it's been that kind of a human experience to now be able to understand what it's like on one side and on the other. So that's definitely interesting. That you brought that up. The other thing too, I think the thing that I really captured for, I guess, like for future generations is the understanding that it doesn't have to be this hard.
Yeah. It
doesn't. Like, it just really doesn't. There is no reason why, I'm describing hard as the government and our systems that are a capitalism, and then we have this republic. To be in a situation where we're going to make it as hard for people to vote. We're going to make it hard for people to be educated. We're going to make it hard for people to stay healthy. We're going to make it hard for the masses. and the regular people, right, who either can't do better, won't do better, whatever their story is. And then we have the few, we're going to make it easy for them to fleece these people, the whole group, so that they can continue to stay in power and wealthy. Like, really? You know what I mean? How much money do you need? There has to be enough. There is actually enough, you know, but it doesn't have to be this hard to, they are the worst. This is one of the worst examples of leadership ever, and how to govern. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't want you to govern me the way that our government governs us, right? It's just the craziest imbalance. But it's a lot of it really is just rooted in fear, because they are afraid. If we got a hold of whatever it is we needed to get a hold of, then we would do the same thing to them. But most of us are not in that train of thought. We just want you to get out the way. We want you to get your knee off of us, get your foot off of our backs and off our necks. You know what I mean? Just, it's okay if I have health care. You know, it should just be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you a specific example. Like, we're recording this right now, it's tax time. I had to do this year U.S. taxes and Mexican taxes. Usually I pay somebody to do my Mexican taxes, but then I realized it was actually super easy to do. And I always have to pay somebody to do my U.S. taxes because it's not super easy to do. So through TurboTax, I actually didn't, all my income was in Mexico from last year. So really, what am I even doing taxes for? Just to tell them that all of my income was in Mexico, and you have no right to any of it. There's a blanket exemption because you made your money out of the country. So I had to do one for North Carolina, which I haven't lived in 5 years. But that's the last state. You got to do a state somewhere. You can't just not do state. Then I did one for federal. Had to pay TurboTax $170 to send 2 forms to 2 places with a bunch of zeros on it. Why? And then I did the Mexican taxes, and I went in there. I had to identify who I was with all the paperwork or what have you. They have all my income in there already.
Just preloaded.
All I gotta do is confirm.
That's it.
I don't have to give you no W-2. I don't have to go through all this other rigmarole. We already know what you made because your company tells us.
You're welcome.
No, not everybody's situation is like that. Plenty of people in Mexico, get paid in cash.
Under the table, yeah.
They'd have to declare something.
Yeah.
If they don't declare something,
right.
Taxes in Mexico is a little fuzzy. But like once I confirmed everything, they said, "Oh, we owe you 1,300 pesos." I didn't have to do that math. They did the math already. Like, why can't it be that easy? Why is it so difficult?
Right.
Why do I have to pay somebody anything to do? Like, I was literally dumb paying someone in Mexico to do my taxes just because I didn't know the system.
Yeah. And there was a level of fear, too, that you would mess something up.
Right.
And you don't want to mess up a foreign situation like that.
I asked ChatGPT and it gave me the instructions, and the instructions worked.
Oh, hey, Chat.
Hey, AI is good for something.
Yeah, right.
Saved me $200.
Yeah.
But like the two countries' tax systems are very similar in a lot of ways. And you can see the difference between one that wants to make it easy for you and one that wants to make it hard for you, and it makes money for someone else.
Right. That capitalism.
So all of it is just a little disheartening at sometimes because, every country has its problems. Every country has its pros and its cons, the plus and minuses. But, you go someplace else and your mind tends to stick on the really big negatives and the really big pluses. And then you come back and say, why doesn't my country have these pluses? Or why does my country not have these negatives? So all that I think is, interesting to kind of pull back from Mexico. And I think something that unlocked for me is just the ability to live in a place that is more close-knit. And by that I mean, we were living more in the downtown area in San Miguel de Allende in Mexico. And we could go downstairs and there's a corner store, and there's a produce stand, and there's a grocery store pretty close.
Bakery.
And there's bakery.
Yeah,
and there's just,
pharmacy.
Living in a neighborhood where you could walk down the street and there's residential and commercial retail all in the same place. And like now they're like, oh, walkable communities. And, we have to get back to this. And like, this is the way we used to live.
Literally.
Until somebody decided we should all drive out to the suburbs and go to one big place where all the shopping is in
The
one
malls,
place.
yeah.
And I understand the advantage of that. But like that was a big part of the decision with where we live now. We prefer to be in downtown Dayton rather than being out in the suburbs.
Yeah.
And like we live here and there's, you know, a bakery around the corner, 2 or 3 bakeries and cafes and a little brewery and convenience store, gas station. Like there's things around and like
art gallery,
right,
pizza shop.
I start looking for neighborhoods that have things within walking distance rather than saying, oh, I want to live out in the suburbs where it's quiet and I can go to the big shopping center. And guess what? I can still go to the big shopping
Still go to Targets, wherever we want to go.
I can still go 10 minutes down the road to Walmart if I want to. Like that's not you know, out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
But that definitely changed my perception because like I never really wanted to live in a downtown area.
But being able to walk out your door, go left, go right, and be able to grab something, right? Whether it's a convenience store, the bodegas, or, you know, an actual meal.
Instead of being in, you know, 10,000 square acres of a, you know, compound of a community. And if you want to get to something, you got to get, you know, walk
10 minutes to get
55 minutes out of the neighborhood
right.
to get to a main street. And then hopefully another 15 minutes to get to something else.
Yeah.
So like it's all kind of coming full circle, I think, as we kind of move through life as a society and say, you know, we thought this idea was good, but this old way maybe was a little bit better. There's some things missing.
Definitely.
So it's good to kind of get a little bit back to that, I think.
Yeah.
A big thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's simplified things, being able to have things. And I think also that adds to community as well. You know, when you can go down the street where everybody knows your name, right? Because that's what happened with us. You know, we roll up into one of the stores, bakeries or whatever, and it's like, Yaki, or they didn't say Yaki, but Jackie, Chris, you know, and it's like, oh, hey, you know, hey. You get a chance to meet and greet and actually know people's names because you go there every week or multiple times during the week or whatever. Yeah. So it's a whole different experience for sure. Simplicity for sure. That comparing some of those things like medicine. You know, I'm telling you, I can't get used to it. Every time I got to go into the Walgreens and fill up a prescription, and it'll be ready in 45 minutes. That thing burns me up. Oh, it burns me up. Because if y'all have seen any of our episodes, when you go to Mexico, you go to the cash register, you go to the lady, to the gentleman, you give them the prescription. Oh, okay, you need, you know, whatever, penicillin. Okay, great.
I got a box of it on the shelf.
There you go.
It's already prepackaged. Here
you go. That would be 100 pesos. Not only is it convenient, but it is also very, very affordable. That the utilities there, you know, electric specifically and water, you know, they have a rule, their government rule is we're going to make it baseline. You know, the first things we look at when we get here or hear on the news, the absorbent prices just for basic utilities and communities and I would say municipalities are suing power companies because they're basically just jacking up prices because they can. You know, just different things like that. And it's just like, well, back in Mexico.
But I'm going to reel you in a little bit because the conversation is, what did Mexico unlock for you that you would take forward?
Well, taking forward did not necessarily learn.
What is not necessarily comparing Mexico to
I understand. Well, okay, so the unlocking though, I will say
we can flip the topic here.
No.
I mean, like, what is moving to Dayton unlocked for you?
I think is part of the reason why we decided to stay, right? So it's, okay, we do have these options. Because, I mean, for real, we could have gone and said, okay, we're going to go back to Charlotte, to home base.
Charlotte,
Delaware, Maryland. Let's start over there. But we started to look at the infrastructure here. We started to look at the housing costs, right? And the things and the walkability of the neighborhoods. There's all those things. And realized, it's a little diamond in the rough. And maybe even a diamond, right? A couple of carats. And so it was like, okay, I don't have to have or live in the wherever that place is, because it costs a premium.
Yeah.
So having that understanding and experience, because we experienced that, you know, in San Miguel, where we were almost going to pull triggers on, you know, the more expensive space, but it's like, no, we don't have to live that way. It doesn't. Those are not the choices we have to make, even though those are the ones we may want to make. What is it that we actually do need, and what is it that we actually want? And that is so un-American. Normally it's, you make more, your house grows. You make more, you get a bigger car. You make more, now you just keep adding and widening out. So that's something that we learned and we brought here.
I will say we did try to go even harder here.
Yeah.
My initial thought was like, hey, we'll get like a little 1-bedroom or studio, because you can get it for like $800. You know, we'll just suck it up and just, you know, we'll live very, you know, meager. And like you start seeing the places and it's like, I haven't fully gotten rid of all my Americanness just yet.
Punked out.
I'm not quite there. I don't need to be, you know, downtown in luxury high-rise buildings.
Yeah.
There is an in-between. So,
yeah.
You know, I don't have to go to the full extreme of one way or the other. There is a middle ground that, you know, is helpful and can save you some money without necessarily you feeling like you're living in a space that isn't comfortable for you.
Yeah. We got a good medium here.
Yeah, I think we got a good medium. You know, so like, could we live in New York? We could possibly afford that, but like, what would you afford in New York?
A
I think my son's rent is twice as much as what we pay here. They're what, $2,600?
Almost, yeah, almost.
Yeah, we pay $1,300.
At least $1,000 more.
And their whole apartment probably fits in our living room and kitchen, and it's a 2-bedroom. 2-bedroom. So like, it's about what do you want to do with your money and
how do you want to live?
How do you want to live? And, you know, we could spend money and be in other places that might be closer to family, but like, what do you get out of it at the end of the day? You get close to family, and like, maybe you could actually save a little bit more money on a monthly basis and still get close to family, spending that money, getting closer to family, going to see people, paying for a flight. Like a flight, going to New York for the weekend is like
$100,
not only just seeing family, but also it's New York. It's, you know, it's always something to do. So like, there's a bonus to being in both places, you know. So like, being in the Ohio, having the lower cost of living, and there's still nice stuff here, and then being able to travel to go see family in New York City. There's a benefit to that. Now, the benefit isn't necessarily you get to see your grandchild as often as you want to.
Oh, I missed that pumpkin
But there
pie.
are other things that kind of come with that. You know, saving money, doing other things with your money. We're old. We need more money in our retirement plan because there's not much in there now.
Yeah.
So, like, there are other things to kind of look at the entire situation. It's not just about how close can I be to the baby when my son wants to be in New York City. Now, if I can convince them to go someplace else, we always try.
And if you're watching, Ohio is hiring.
And I think one thing Dayton, Ohio did unlock, I think, for you is, it's probably necessarily isn't something that isn't available anywhere else, but here there's a whole lot of nonprofit, there's a whole lot of people trying to help other people. And I think a core principle of like what you want to do career-wise, it could be, you know, a plethora of different careers and different ways and to do this, but like, you want to help people. It could be helping
Serving
kids in a daycare. It could be, you know, at a restaurant serving food. It could be all types of ways that you can be in service to other people. But I think this city in particular has a large industry around service to other people. The healthcare industry is really big here. The nonprofit industry is really big here. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for you in those spaces that, you know, maybe you don't get in the New York City or in Delaware or you know, wherever. Definitely didn't have that opportunity as much, not as a career in Mexico.
Right, for sure.
There's plenty of places to help other people, but nobody was paying you nothing to do that.
Right.
So like, there's some benefit, I think, career-wise. And obviously, career-wise for me, just being in the United States, I get way more money. So like, Dayton did unlock, you know, income for me in that way. You know, so there's a lot that, you know, Mexico did for us in our time in Mexico, and I think there's a lot that Dayton can do for us in our time here. And I think the sweet spot is like taking those lessons together in a way and seeing like, how can we start building ourselves as better people and better lives and better finances and all the things to kind of, strengthen who we are.
Right.
Post having children in our house and being empty nesters and being able to have this space be what we want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's exciting. Like, how do we combine what we know and what we gather? Like, we all have our life experience, and how can we really learn from that and move forward with it? So I think that's the exciting part.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they'll put another one in the can for us.
Yeah.
So we're excited to hear from you guys. What are some things that, for those of you who are transplanting in other places, what are you kind of learning and bringing with you through life, and what have you kind of changed your outlook or your behavior on? I think would be the question. We'd love to hear from you guys in the comments.
And empty nesters too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we're the 70s kids. We're the 70s and 80s babies that are transitioning. Our children are grown, and it's like, well, what we gonna do now?
That's the question. What are you gonna do now?
What we gonna do
that you could not do before?
Yeah. So we are excited about this journey. We are excited about what God has in store for all of us. And again, just love on each other, because we got some challenges ahead. Y'all might see us next time. We might be planting tomatoes or something, because stuff is popping off. So anyway,
you don't want me killing no tomatoes.
What we gonna do? We gotta know what to do. Anyway, y'all have a good one. We'll see y'all on the next episode.
As always, you're watching 7997. We are Chris and Jackie. Quidate, Arias Garce.
Yeah.
Take care and take a chance.
Love you guys.
Peace, y'all.